because honestly, I can't be doing my intro when we've just witnessed facts. It's time for a review of the Champions League final and the absolute beatdown we just witnessed. One of the most shocking Champions League finals in recent history. The biggest defeat in Champions League history. The biggest win. Wow. 5-0 PSG beat Inter in the Champions League final. That is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, I'm gonna give my thoughts on the final. I'll give my thoughts on, to be honest, I'm not even going to speak that much about the final because, I mean, it was just so one-sided that I need to just talk about these teams in general. And let's talk about PSG because PSG have finally done it. They have won their first ever Champions League final. They've won their first ever UCL after how many years of this project, and well, it is very ironic, isn't it? The first real time since the Qatari owners have come in that PSG have not got a single superstar in their team, and they win the Champions League. It's pretty ironic, right? The year that Kylian Mbappe leaves, after, Neymar leaves, Messi leaves, all of these guys go, they win the Champions League in emphatic style, literally destroying everybody in their path. And I think for that reason you have to, we'll get into individual players, and of course they played their part massively, but for that reason, for me, this Champions League win, and not all of the credit, but the majority of the credit for me needs to go to Luis Enrique. Can we just acknowledge the job that Luis Enrique has done at PSG? It is absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. Bearing in mind he took over a team who they had just been bounced out of the Champions League under Pochettino. They had Messi, Neymar, Mbappe, Ramos, and all these big name superstars. They were just completely dysfunctional. Yet he has moulded this team into his image. He has, as I mentioned, without a superstar in this team, he has made them the best team in Europe by a country mile. By a country mile, they are the best team in Europe. And again, they have fantastic individual players, as we'll get on to, but this win, in the final, this win in all of their UCL run, was not really down to individual quality. It's down to brilliant coaching by Enrique. They are a team. It's the first ever time that PSG have been a team, and from top to bottom, defensively solid, midfield controls the game, the attack lethal. It's unreal. It's unreal what Luis Enrique has done, and you have to give him massive credit, because I wanted to open with that just because I know a lot of people will be talking about Doué and Dembele and all of that, but really I do believe personally that the star of this team is Luis Enrique. Without Enrique in charge, I don't think PSG win this Champions League. He has coached them into such a great team, such a fantastic manager, and what a great moment for him, because he won the treble with Barcelona. This is his second treble now he's won as a manager, which is very impressive. Joins a very small, exclusive club in doing that. But since winning that treble, he's had his ups and downs. He obviously left Barca and took a bit of time off, went to Spain, didn't really work out there, goes to PSG, and first couple years he's sort of trying to blend in his identity, blend his style, mould this team into his image. But now he's got that Champions League trophy after how long, right? It's been about 10 years now since he last won a UCL. So what a moment for Luis Enrique, and massive credit to him. I will also give credit to Luis Campos as well, the directors and the recruitment team at PSG, because a lot of the reason as well why PSG won this was because of their just absolutely sensational recruitment this season in the summer and in January too. Now, of course, PSG have a bunch of money, right? But as we know, in previous years they've been splashing it on superstars and stuff. But this season they made some really good signings. They abandoned that model. They went for these young players who they knew would fit Enrique's system, who they knew would be fantastic, and they've been crucial. Pacho came in the summer. Again, no one really batted an eyelid about it. Super underrated player, underrated signing, and it's been a rock at the back for them. Joao Neves obviously cost a lot of money, but what a signing he's been. Desiree Doué, I mean, insane, scores 2 goals in a Champions League final, the youngest player ever to do so, came in the summer. Kavicha obviously came in January. By the way, let me know in the comments if you can name someone else, but this surely has to be the greatest January transfer of all time. Kvara to PSG, but yeah, fantastic recruitment, just really good squad building in the end. After some really bad years, they finally knew how to spend their money. You know, I'm not going to call it like an underdog story because of course they've spent so much money and it was always sort of a matter of time before PSG lifted the UCL trophy. But what I will say is it's an unexpected victory. I don't think many people expected PSG at the start of the season to win this trophy, and especially in the manner they did. I would say it's a very impressive UCL victory from PSG, with one of the most dominant displays in a Champions League final I think I've ever seen. I think most people have ever seen, because if we get into the actual game, I mean, from minute 1 to 90, this was really a no contest. I think there was maybe a 3-5 minute spell before half time where Inter Milan put a bit of pressure on PSG, but Inter didn't lay a glove on them. Like, they didn't. I mean, look at the stats. They had 2 shots on target. Inter didn't really have any massive opportunities in the entire game. They couldn't touch PSG, and on the flip side, PSG honestly maybe could have even been 6. I mean, Bradley Barcola probably should have scored. Yeah, they had plenty of chances. It was absolute onslaught, and I remember I mentioned in my preview that we had 2 really good counter-attacking sides, and I mean, PSG showed it. For me, like, the best teams in the world can do both. They can break down low blocks with exceptional ease, but they can also be exceptional on the counter-attack. And PSG are honestly maybe the best in the world at both, because they showed in this game they can break down those low blocks with their Kimi goal into sitting deep, and PSG found ways to break them down. But then, you know, they hit them on the counter just absolutely lethal. Obviously, I know it was a bit late on, but you know, on the counter, Kvara's goal, Meilu's goal, yeah, and it was just an absolute battering. And I said it was one of the most shocking because I don't think anybody expected PSG to smash Inter this badly. I think people had PSG as slight favourites going into this, but a lot of us, I called it. I said it was a 50-50 final. It was one of the most evenly contested finals in a long time, and we were so wrong because it was honestly a mismatch, and that was PSG's best performance probably of the Champions League, maybe this entire season, and it came in the Champions League final. And for such a young team to do that and put on a display like that, you have to give them massive props, because they play with great maturity out there. They played like, you know, they had won 4 Champions Leagues before. They didn't look phased one bit. Honestly, I thought maybe there could be a little bit of nerves potentially, at least early on, but no, like Doué, for example, even besides the 2 goals, I mean, he was doing his usual stuff, trying tricks, trying skills with his lovely touches, were always on point. Dembele, you doing those little back heels, was instrumental in that goal. All of the players, just play like it was a normal game. They literally did not look phased one bit that it was a Champions League final, and you have to give them massive credit there. And yeah, I mean, if we talk about some of the individual players now, obviously Doué scoring a brace and getting an assist in the Champions League final. I believe he is the youngest ever player to score in a Champions League final now, and he scored 2 goals too. Absolutely incredible for a kid who's like 19. Yeah, one of the best youngsters out there in world football. I think a lot of us as well sort of haven't maybe put him into that category with like Yamal's and that, but I think that performance has maybe shown people who didn't put him in that category that yes, this guy is up there with people like Lamine Yamal as one of the best young players in world football and one of the future faces of football. Ousmane Dembele, he didn't get a goal in this game, but he got 2 assists. He kind of got 3 as well, with that back heel was basically an assist for that goal, and overall was absolutely incredible, as he has been this entire UCL campaign. And that's probably for me the Ballon d'Or done as well. He put in an amazing display in this game, 2 assists in the final. He has been probably maybe PSG's, maybe not their best, but most important player potentially in this UCL run. Like, he has scored some huge goals. He scored in the knockout game against Liverpool. He scored in the knockout game versus Arsenal in the semi-final. I think he scored in the quarter-final too. He got 2 assists in the final. He was Player of the Year in League 1 too. They won a treble. Yeah, for me, Dembele is maybe not 100% got the Ballon d'Or, but I think he's firm favourite now to win the Ballon d'Or. Not necessarily because I think Dembele's been the best player in the world this season, but I think just because of the achievements, because of the performance he's been put in. Yeah, Dembele has a very strong case now to win the Ballon d'Or, but we'll see what happens there. I mean, Gavicha, wow. This man in the UCL run, just like Dembele, he has an argument to be their best player in the Champions League this season. Absolutely incredible. And in this final, he obviously got his goal, which is a nice moment for him. I believe the first Georgian player to ever score in a Champions League final. But I also want to highlight this guy's defensive work, because defensively this guy put in a shift. I mean, he absolutely locked down Dumfries, who, I mean, Inter's win-backs in general were locked down. We didn't get a sniff, and that was because Gavicha, Doué were all tracking back and putting in the hard yards. Again, showing that being a team is much better than having superstar players, right? And hell, maybe even Barca. I know Yamal, Rafinha, they aren't superstars, but if they had the work rate that Gavicha had in this game, probably go through, and Dumfries doesn't be as effective as he was in the Barca game, because yeah, the defensive display he put in was incredible. This midfield, Vitinha, Neves and Ruiz, yet again, just completely controlled the game, cannot get the ball off them, and defensively put in such a shift, particularly João Neves. All 3 of them have just been absolutely fantastic in this Champions League run, and yeah, incredible. The full-backs, wow, Mendes and Hakimi in this Champions League run have been sensational. Hakimi managed to get a goal in this game. Going forward has just been so vital to PSG. Mendes, I mean, to be fair, he didn't really have too much to do in this game, but we cannot forget his contributions throughout the campaign. Without him, they may not have got through Liverpool, they may not have got through Arsenal, they may not have even got through Villa without him. Pacho and Marquinhos, again, in this game, to be honest, they didn't really have too much to do, but they played their part for sure in the Champions League run. And look, I'm not Marquinhos' biggest fan. I've sort of criticised him in the past for these big games, these big moments, making errors. But I will say, fair play, a nice moment for him for sure. But yeah, Marquinhos, look, he's the only one in this team who has been around really from those PSG Zizzy has been part of those really years of pain, decade of pain at PSG, but finally he gets his hand on the trophy as captain, so a really nice moment for him for sure. And Donnarumma again, like these guys, didn't really have anything to do in this game, but wow, I mean, did he play his part in this Champions League run? Against Liverpool, a hero in the shootout. Against Villa in the second leg, hero. Against Arsenal, a hero. Absolutely sensational. And hell, I mean, Seni Melu, shout out to him as well. Managed to get a goal. I mean, it was, I couldn't help but just smile for the kid because you could see his face, the absolute joy. He couldn't believe it. I mean, that was just so embarrassing for Inter, right? That they're just subbing on kids now to get them a goal, and yeah, what a nice moment for him. But yeah, PSG, absolutely incredible. And one final thing I'll say is maybe this, honestly, it's scary how it's for the rest of Europe, honestly, because this really could be the start of something. It could be the start of a dynasty now. The new kings of Europe. I mentioned this in my preview that obviously Real Madrid have been the kings of Europe for like the last decade or so, but maybe this sort of now is entering the era of PSG because they have obviously moved away from this superstar model and they're only going to continue to get better. Most of these players, the scary thing is most of these players haven't even hit their prime yet. Pacho, Mendes, Vitinha, João Neves, Doué, all are very young and still can grow. Players like Dembele, Kvara, Hakimi maybe aren't young, but they're still got plenty of years to improve and get better. Barcola, Emery, I mean, it's looking scary, and you know they're probably going to keep investing. They've got the money to replenish this squad. They've got their recruitment right now. They know what they're doing. They've got an amazing coach. Yeah, it's honestly looking scary. It's very hard, of course, to go back to back in the Champions League and dominate the Champions League like Madrid have done. But I mean, honestly, if I have to put a bet on a team to go back to back, it would be PSG right now because these guys only look like they're just getting started. But congratulations to them on their first ever Champions League victory. Now, as for Inter, wow, that was very embarrassing. 5-0 loss in a Champions League final. Look, there's ways to lose a final, and that certainly isn't it. If Inter had lost 2-0, maybe even 3-0, obviously their fans would be very disappointed, but they would be like, okay, you know what, we got beat by the better team, it is what it is. But to lose 5-0 in a final is just, that goes beyond the point of disappointment. That is embarrassment, and honestly, I'm sure Inter fans would have preferred they got knocked out to Barca than experience this final, because now Inter will be remembered in history as the team that got battered in the Champions League final. One of the worst days in Inter Milan history, really, here. And it is disappointing, to be honest, because they have actually been really good this season in the Champions League. They had a great run to the final, but then to end it like this is just awful. And look, there's two parts here, because the scary thing for me is that Inter were bad. Don't get me wrong, they were really bad, and they did not turn up for this final. But I don't think Inter were like completely atrocious. I just think that PSG were absolutely incredible, and Inter were poor. And that is why they lost 5-0, right? I don't think it was necessarily Inter were just absolutely abysmal. Again, don't get me wrong, Inter were bad. None of the Inter players can hold their heads up high. Literally none of them. They didn't create a single chance. They didn't lay a glove on PSG. Defensively, particularly in the second half, just got absolutely ripped apart. Inzaghi, I also thought his substitutions really weird, like bringing on Zaleski instead of Carlos Augusto. Augusto eventually came on, but then moving Zaleski midfield, not bringing on like Fratesi, bringing on like Aslani. It was weird. It was odd. He got completely tactically outplayed by Enrique. Every player lost their individual battle. The wing backs couldn't do absolutely anything. They got outworked off the ball by by PSG. They couldn't defend. They couldn't win those 1v1 battles. They couldn't go with the electricness of the front three. They couldn't get the ball off the midfield. They couldn't go with the fullbacks going forward. Their strikers and attack couldn't create anything against the defence. I mean, Jan Sommer, so crucial to getting to the final, but then a real shocker and a stinker in that final. Got beat at the near post like 3 times for the goals. Yeah, really embarrassing for Inter. A very sad and embarrassing way to exit the Champions League and lose a final for sure. And this probably is the end of a road for Inter, if I'm being completely honest here. This sort of generation, this era of Inter Milan seems like it's kind of over, and that is the crescendo. A lot of these players are very, very old, right? And have sort of, Inter and Inzaghi's been able to squeeze everything they can out of this Inter team. But they came up against a young, youthful, much better tactically side, much better individual side, and they got completely cooked and exposed, really. And it is disappointing. They've been to now 2 Champions League finals in the last like 3-4 years. They lost both. Yeah, I personally don't see them getting to another one in the next 1 or 2 years. I think it might be a bit of a rebuild time for them. Off the back of this, it's a trophyless season as well, and maybe I think this might mean Inzaghi leaves. Inzaghi has been heavily linked to the Saudi job for Al Hilal. I think losing a final this badly, again, I feel like he might just say, you know what, this is an end of an era. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to motivate this same group of players to go again in the Champions League after such a damaging defeat. That is potentially going to do a lot to the psychology of this team, and yeah, I think this might mean Inzaghi leaves, which is disappointing, but yeah, what a sad way for Inter to lose, but what an amazing win, what an amazing final from PSG. As a neutral watching, I mean, obviously it wasn't a competitive final, but it was a fun final to watch just purely because of the shock and the goals and the amazing performances by PSG. But that brings an end pretty much to the football season for this year, so just want to say thank you very much to everyone who supported the channel and watched our content, my content, throughout this season, throughout the Champions League. It's been a very good Champions League season, I will say. In general, it was the first year with the league phase, right? But I think it was pretty entertaining this season. And yeah, overall it was a really good football season, ending in a historic treble for PSG, a first-time Champions League winner, the biggest win in Champions League football history, the youngest goal scorer in a Champions League final, probably a Ballon d'Or winner confirmed. A lot of records broken in this final, so yeah. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please do leave a like, consider subscribing, and I'll see